This is the only time that I'm on a bike and somebody's as tall or taller than me. You guys just like, I'm on my bike, it looks like I'm on a horse. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to 10-Minute Talks with D.Rey, the talk show tailored towards those of us with a short attention span. I have a very special guest on here. I don't even know you, I'm gonna just call you a great Philadelphian because this shit is so dope. Okay. But my man Paul SALTER right here. Jazz musician, bike extraordinaire, probably one of the most interesting people in the city. I stopped him randomly because I had to have this conversation, man. How you doing?
Doing great. It's awesome to be here on your program.
Thank you, man. Thank you. So we're here because that is it a bike? Can you even say it's a bike?
It is. It's actually the first machine that was regularly called a bicycle.
Okay.
The word bicycle actually had been used a few times in the early 1800s, but when this was invented in 1869, it was the regular name that was initially used for it. It's also had other names, but initially it was just called a bicycle.
A bicycle. Okay. So I've seen you around the city plenty of times. We're on Schuylkill River Wall right now. Like, I've seen you along here, but I'll see you like randomly in the city. I was like, I say if I ever catch him not pedaling, because I don't want to run up on you while you're on it. I have to ask him. So how did you get involved with something like that? Obviously everybody has a bike, but
yes,
why that?
A friend of mine who has a vintage bicycle ride in the city every year called the Seersucker Ride invited me to be the grand marshal of his bicycle ride, and it's a fun ride. But he did this because he knew that if he invited me to do that, he would get my jazz band for free. And the name of the band is Parlor Noir.
Okay.
And so I essentially, thought, well, I'll never ever get offered to do a grand marshal role again. So I needed a cool bike. And I wanted one like that. I'd always wanted a bike like that. And the ride gave me an excuse to get one. And so I started out with one that was a lot smaller. And I was a little scared, because I didn't want to wipe out and, get hurt on the first, during a parade or something like that. But once I figured it out, it wasn't so bad. And then you just sort of get addicted to the idea of, well, wait a second, if I could ride this one, could I ride a bigger one?
Yeah. And
I just started, the first one was a 36, and then the next one was a 52, this one's a 54, and I have a 56, which every once in a while comes out, but it's really just for going as fast as I can possibly go on a very, wide open location.
Yeah. So, is the biggest 50? You said you have a 56. Is the biggest 56?
That's the biggest one that I have. Yeah.
Oh, okay. How big does it go?
There are 60-inch wheels. There are wheels that are bigger than that, but you need like extensions. So, like the general rule of thumb is, you can ride a wheel as big as will fit, from the length of your leg. And that's how you size them. So I'm about 6 foot tall, and I can ride a racer, which has slightly smaller crank arms, that has a 56-inch wheel from this manufacturer.
Okay. All right. Where the hell you get a wheel that big? I've never walked in somewhere and seen a wheel that big.
So there are a few companies in the world that make them. There are about 4 that I know of. This one's from a company in Sweden called Standard High Wheel. Okay. And there's another one in California called Rideable Replicas. The Standard High Wheel makes bikes that are, if you can imagine, if you can believe this, this was actually made for racing, racing for this type of bike, and it's got an aluminum framed wheel or aluminum rim, and so it's a lot lighter than the historical bicycles would have been. And it goes faster for a longer period of time, which is the advantage of it being a lighter bike. Yeah. So there's another company called unicycles.com, and that's that. Every once in a while, somebody say, "Oh, it's a unicycle." It's like, there's 2 wheels. It has 2 wheels. So that 2 is bice. Okay, yeah. So anyway, but there's a company called unicycle.com that also makes them, and then there's also somebody in Australia that makes them. I can't remember the name of the company right now. But Standard High Wheel is a great company, and I managed to get the biggest one during COVID, which was a crazy process to get it flown in. Yeah. But this one I got just last year, and actually smashed the wheel and had to rebuild the wheel. Damn. And that was a fun experience. But I have, as you were saying, there's not like I get a chance to rebuild wheels that big often. So that was kind of a one-off, I hope, because I really don't want to smash a wheel like that again.
I could imagine. So between the jazz we talked about before we got on camera, you said jazz from like 20s and 30s.
Yep.
Between the jazz and stuff like this, I have to imagine you're some form of a history buff.
Oh, I love history, absolutely.
So where does that come from?
You know, when I was growing up, I grew up during the bicentennial, and my family are originally from Canada. And you would think that they'd be all about, oh, we got to, you know, go into the history of, you know, Canada and, you know, the United Kingdom, but they made everything about the bicentennial in this country. So the whole house was decorated, you know, about the history of the country in its most frilly term.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like what usually happens is that anything your parents tell you to do, you know, like it wasn't enough to know about that little bit of history. I want to know about everything. And so, you know, I also grew up a big fan of ragtime music.
Yeah.
And a movie that was very popular when I was a kid was a movie called The Sting.
Okay.
And that movie reintroduced the music, or repopularized the music of Scott Joplin, who was the greatest ragtime piano player ever. And I learned how to play some of his music when I was a kid. And the rhythm of that is so fundamental to early jazz that it was really something that, you know, was instilled into me at an early age, that this is music that you can dance to, this is music that is such an important part of our history and culture, and such a beautiful part of it, that I fell in love with it. And so every aspect of trying to sort of find out more about it in the fullness of its history is really important to me.
Yeah, I like that, man, I like that. So, I gotta ask the obvious question.
Sure.
How the hell do you get on it?
So it's got this is a question virtually everybody asks, and I can actually demonstrate it while they're asking me.
I would love that.
And so
afterwards,
yes, exactly. But there are two pegs on what they call the backbone of the bike.
Okay.
And they're not that small, but relative to the rest of the size of the bike, most people don't notice them unless you really look for them.
Yeah.
And so you stand behind the bike with your hands on the handlebars, and you push off with the free foot while one is on one of the pegs. And you push it like a scooter. And if you get it going fast enough, you can climb up and sit on the seat and then start pedaling, hopefully before the whole thing goes over like a tree.
Okay.
And this takes a lot of practice. That is probably the second hardest thing to do on that bike. The hardest thing to do is to get off the bike.
Oh, yeah.
Because there are no brakes on it.
Oh. It's his.
That's cool.
It's his.
So people asking like, you know, where's the brake? And I'm like, I am the brake.
Yeah.
So you can slow down. It's got a fixed hub, which means that the crank arms are always turning. They are part of the axle.
Okay.
And as the wheel turns, so do the cranks. So you can kind of slow down a little bit. But if you slow down too abruptly, it will do what was historically referred to as a header. It'll literally flip forward. And the results of that could be really bad.
Exactly.
You know, that's why it's called a header. And that's also why when, like the bike that everybody else rides, they came out, like the two-wheeled bike that everybody rides today came out just a little bit later than this one, which came out in 1869. But because of the dangers of riding this one, and when that bike was first introduced, the bike that everybody rides today, back in 1890, was referred to as a safety bicycle.
Okay.
And because there were so many of these around at that time, they called this an ordinary bicycle. Or they just called it an ordinaire.
Yeah.
And also around that time in England, they were calling them penny farthings. Another common name in this country for them at that time was high wheel. And the people that rode them were called wheelmen. They're still in this. I belong to a group of like vintage bicycle enthusiasts called the Wheelmen.
Okay.
And they get together for bike rides and ride those types of bikes and every other kind of bike. But
I just hear Bob Dylan's "The Times Are Changing" when you said like now those are considered the weird bikes and this is what people consider normal. But it's like it was a time. All right, so I have to. Can we?
Of course. Any question you want.
This is crazy. So this is the only time that I'm on a bike and somebody's as tall or taller than me. You have to say, like, I'm on my bike, it looks like I'm on a horse.
The most common question I get is like, do a wheelie. I was like, come on, man, I'm already up there.
I'm gonna let you take the lead. I'm gonna get behind.
Sure.
I don't want no crashes. I guess this is my first one moving, but it's been another 10-minute talk with D.Rey. What'd you say? My man. This has been another 10-minute talk with D.Rey, the talk show tailored towards those of us with a short attention span. Like I said, my man Paul Salter, jazz musician, bike extraordinaire, overall dope individual. Oh, he's dismounting? Oh, shit. And yeah, stay tuned with everything Philly.